Today I thought we'd make the dolls some of those wonderful gooey, chewy, soft pretzels like you pick up at the mall. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy these are to make. Alright, to make our soft pretzels we are using original Sculpey. Couple of reasons. It's cheaper since we're going to use quite a bit. It's nice and soft and easy to manipulate, and I had it on hand. So what I'm doing first, I've got this condition, which means I've worked with it with my hands to get it softened up and all nice and held together here. And I'm trying to make, oops, I got a little too thin there while I'm talking. I'm trying to make a snake. And my snake needs to be somewhere kind of, I did one up already, and I found it worked best with a snake of clay that was kind of between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch, about the diameter of my pinky finger, not quite that big. And then we need it to be 8 inches long. And this looks about right. It's a little thinner than my pinky, about right. So now I'm going to take my clay knife and I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut it a little short because I need to kind of round the ends, and they're going to grow a little bit. Now you can make yours any size you want, and these are the big soft, the big soft pretzels like you get at some malls and stuff, the gooey ones that we shouldn't probably eat. All right, now I'm going to go like this. Cross them kind of close to the ends. And that varies. I've noticed, I kind of looked at pretzels online to get some reference photos, and it seems to vary by who's making the pretzel exactly how they're twisted. But just like a real pretzel, you just do that. Oh, that one turned out very nice. And now we need to make it look baked. So for that, we are going to use chalk. And I've got 3 brushes, so I can use a clean brush with each color. We're going to use some yellow ochre, which, there's my chalk. Now don't use your clay knife, use another knife to scrape this. And I do prefer to scrape mine into a palette to work with. That's just my preference. Some people draw onto a piece of paper and go from there. There's different ways of doing this. None are right or wrong. It's what works best for you. Okay? That's the whole thing. Do what works best for you. Since I've got a slightly larger eyeshadow brush here today, I'm going to use it for the yellow ochre. And yellow ochre is just kind of it's kind of a mustardy, dark yellow, kind of a golden yellow. And this is almost always our first layer when we are doing a baked good. We want it to be reasonably good coat. We want to leave some, like these areas here where it's overlapped, where the twists are overlapped, we want to leave those white because the dough would be white in those areas. And that's why we don't use a colored clay for this. One of many reasons why we don't use a colored clay. Now, since I don't know if this will be used, it'll probably be able to be seen on the back. Now hold it in your hand for this step, because if you lay it on the tray, you can get bad marks on the front side of it from the chalk that's there or from chalk that falls. Usually in your hand, you have more control over where the chalk goes. I'm kind of cleaning up my tray as I go here. And on this, I do want to get the sides, because the sides would be baked. Maybe not as dark, but they would be baked. And when you're not trying to do a video, you can really take your time. If you've got access to a real pretzel, have it in front of you. That will help. I'm going from pictures online because it's like less than 10 degrees outside right now and snowing like crazy, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to sit here and play with clay. All right, so that's that one. Now we have some kind of a reddish brown, and I'll show you the chalk I used for that one is this color. I use that a lot when I do breads. And this one we're going to go not quite as heavy. And try not to do what I did there and get your fingernail into the clay, because that doesn't look good. And you can see marks where it got some chalk on the bottom because it was on the tray. Depending on how you're going to display yours, you may not need to do the bottom. I think I'm going to put mine. Mine might be displayed in Doll's hands or somewhere else, so I want to make sure it looks nice all the way around. Now, another clean brush and a dark brown, and I think I used this one. It's just a dark brown. And this one we don't want to get very much on. Just kind of around just a few edges. And then go back with your yellow ochre and go over those to kind of blend them. Right now this will need to be baked at 275 for right around 10 minutes, and it will need to be cooled. So let me get the other one I made ready to go in the oven, and then while those are baking and cooling, I'll show you our next step. All right, I know the next part's going to be hard to see on camera, but I'll do my best and I'll explain it as I go. So one of the challenges of replicating these pretzels in the doll size was coming up with a way to do the coarse salt that is kind of iconic on the pretzel. So what I have here is just some white sand. You can get this a lot of places. You can even get it in the garden center, your local hardware store. And then I have Mod Podge. This happens to be matte because it's got a nice easy squeeze top. You can use any type of Mod Podge on this. We're just going to put a couple of drops in. And I'm doing this on parchment paper, for one, to keep the mess down, but also because I want to be able to use the parchment paper to help me kind of break this up once it dries. I found when I was playing around with this, I found that was really important. So I'm just mixing the two together. Don't go too much Mod Podge. You want it fairly dry, and try to kind of spread it out if you can. We are going to be breaking this up once it dries. And once the one side gets dry, it helps if you come by and kind of mix it around again so the bottom side dries, so it'll make it a little bit faster of a process. But we're going to let this dry. We're going to let the pretzels themselves bake and cool, and when that's done, because they have to be cooled to room temperature, so when that's done, I'll be back and we will go on to the next step. Alright, so the Mod Podge and sand mixture has dried, and now kind of what you need to do is kind of come in here and kind of smush it. You want to break it up so that it's coarser than the sand was on its own, but it's not huge lumps. And I find having it on here really helps that. Now we're going to move that off to the side. We're going to get our pretzel. I have some satin finish Mod Podge. This is going to replicate that butter that your pretzel's dipped in, and it's going to hold on our salt mixture that we just worked with. You don't have to do the whole thing. In fact, it's better if you don't. And just do a little bit at a time. And I like just putting this on with my fingers. I find it works a lot better than trying to use a tool for this one. And you don't have to coat every bit of it with your salt. You can do as much or as little as you want. this this way so you guys hopefully can see it better. And if your Mod Podge dries before you get the salt onto it, go ahead and put more Mod Podge on. It has to be wet. And that's why we had to let this cool to room temperature. If it had still been at all warm, the Mod Podge would have dried before the salt got settled into it. Now we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to come back and just kind of touch on a little more Mod Podge to hold that on more securely. So I'll be back when this dries. All right, now that this has dried, I'm just going to take a brush and very carefully just dab some more Mod Podge over our fake salt. That will help to hold it on without ruining the look of this. So let me get finished here. We'll let this dry, and then we'll come back and see how our finished pretzel looks. Alright, so our Mod Podge is pretty much dry. I love how these turned out. I think they're going to be a lot of fun to put with the dolls for different pictures and things. They'd be great for pretend play. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure and hit the like button. Leave me a comment, especially if you have things you'd like to see me make, especially food items. What do you want to see? What do your dolls want to eat? Let me know. If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you to push that subscription button and the notification bell so YouTube can let you know when I put out a new video, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.